Your person is shaking in total shock right now. They lost all control after finding out you are. Don't scroll, listen to this. This message is for you, and if you felt your chest tighten or your breath slow the second you read that title, that wasn't curiosity, that was recognition, and your heart needs this right now because something real is unfolding behind the scenes that you were never meant to chase or control, only to become. And listen closely, because while you were busy surviving, healing quietly, pulling yourself together in ways no one applauded, someone connected to you was still holding on to an old version of you that no longer exists. And don't scroll, listen to this, because the shock they're experiencing didn't come from something you said or did directly, it came from what the universe revealed to them about who you are now, and your heart needs this right now because you may still underestimate the depth of your own transformation. And listen carefully, because this isn't about ego. This is about energetic truth, and when someone realizes they no longer have access to the version of you that bent, waited, overgave, or shrank to be understood, it destabilizes them at a soul level. And don't scroll, listen to this, because the reason they lost control is not because you're gone, it's because you're no longer available in the same way. And your heart needs this right now because you've been wondering if your growth even mattered, if pulling back was worth it, if choosing yourself made a difference. And listen to this truth, the universe does not let growth go unnoticed, especially in soulmate connections. And don't scroll, listen to this, because soul bonds react to change instantly, even across silence, even across distance. And that's why you felt strange shifts lately, sudden thoughts of them, emotional waves that don't feel like yours, dreams that feel charged. And your heart needs this right now because you are not imagining it. You are feeling the ripple of your own awakening reflecting back to you. And listen closely, because when one soul steps into alignment, the other is forced to confront truth, and that confrontation feels like shock, panic, loss of control, because control was never about love, it was about predictability, and you are no longer predictable. And don't scroll, listen to this, because unpredictability in this context means you've stepped into your authentic frequency, the one you were always meant to embody. And your heart needs this right now because authenticity used to feel dangerous to you. And now it feels grounding. And listen carefully, because the universe has been sending you signs to confirm this shift, angel numbers like 11. 11 appearing when you think about them, signaling alignment and awakening, 222 showing up when you consider detaching, reminding you that balance is being restored, and 444 appearing when you feel unexpectedly calm, signaling protection. And don't scroll, listen to this, because those numbers are not about them, they're about you. They're confirmations that you're standing in the right place energetically, and your heart needs this right now because part of you still worries that staying grounded means missing out, when in reality grounding is what makes destiny possible. And listen closely, because what they found out about you is not a secret you announced, it's a realization that arrived when the universe removed illusions. They saw that you are no longer waiting to be chosen, no longer chasing clarity, no longer operating from fear. And that realization shook them because it means the dynamic has changed forever. And don't scroll, listen to this, because change in a soulmate connection is never neutral, it either activates growth or exposes avoidance. And your heart needs this right now because you are not responsible for how someone responds to your evolution. And listen to this truth, growth is not abandonment. And don't scroll, listen to this, because the reason this feels intense is because this connection is karmic or soulmate level, not casual, and those connections don't dissolve quietly. They react, and your heart needs this right now because Reaction does not mean resolution yet, it means awareness has been triggered, and listen closely, because shock is the first stage of awakening when control is lost, and control is always lost right before truth takes over. And don't scroll, listen to this, because your calm right now is not indifference, it's alignment, and your heart needs this right now because you've confused calm with lack of care in the past. And listen carefully. Calm is what happens when you stop abandoning yourself. And that is exactly what they noticed, even if they can't put it into words. And don't scroll, listen to this, because soulmate energy recognizes self-respect immediately, it feels it like a sudden absence of access, and your heart needs this right now because access was never meant to be unconditional when it required self-betrayal. And listen closely, because the universe has been orchestrating this reveal quietly, through timing, through silence, through you choosing rest over reaction. And don't scroll, listen to this, because silence is often louder than explanation in soul contracts, and your heart needs this right now because you've been tempted to explain yourself, to justify your distance, to soften your boundaries. And listen to this truth, your growth does not need to be explained to be valid. And don't scroll, listen to this, because the shock therein is a mirror, reflecting the truth that you've stepped into a higher standard, a higher frequency, and they now have to decide whether to rise or remain where they are. And your heart needs this right now because their decision is not yours to manage. And listen carefully, because destiny does not ask you to wait at the edge of your growth for someone else to catch up. And don't scroll, listen to this, because the universe is watching how you hold yourself now, not how they react. And your heart needs this right now because holding yourself with integrity is what activates the next phase. And listen closely, because part 1 ends here not with an outcome, but with a truth settling into your body, the truth that you did not lose them by becoming yourself, you revealed reality by becoming yourself. And don't scroll, listen to this, because what happens next will not be chaotic, it will be clarifying. And your heart needs this right now because clarity always follows shock, and when it arrives, you will not need to chase it. It will meet you exactly where you are, grounded, awake, and no longer willing to shrink. Don't scroll, listen to this message is for you, and if part 1 stirred something deep in your chest, like a calm mixed with electricity, that's because your heart needs this right now, and the universe is continuing the revelation gently, deliberately, without rushing your nervous system. So stay with me, breathe, and let this land, because this part is about what happens after shock. And listen closely, because shock is not the end of a realization, it's the beginning of truth reorganizing itself, and the person connected to you is not just surprised. They are disoriented, because the version of you they thought they understood no longer fits the reality in front of them. And don't scroll, listen to this, because when someone loses control like this, it's not because they've lost you, it's because they've lost the story they were telling themselves about you. And your heart needs this right now because you've spent so long questioning whether your growth was visible, whether choosing yourself mattered when no one seemed to notice. And listen to this truth, the universe notices first, and when the universe notices, it rearranges perception, and that rearrangement is exactly what they're experiencing. And don't scroll, listen to this, because while you were learning to sit in silence without anxiety, to choose peace over reaction, to let go of outcomes you couldn't control, they were still expecting access to the old emotional entry points, your explanations, your availability, your overthinking. And when those doors quietly closed, panic set in, not because of loss, but because of power shifting. And your heart needs this right now because power shifting does not require confrontation, it happens when one person stops abandoning themselves, and listen closely, because the universe has been sending confirmations to anchor you through this transition. Angel numbers appearing like punctuation marks to remind you you're not imagining the shift. 11. 11 when you catch yourself feeling aligned instead of anxious. 222 when you consider detaching with compassion instead of resentment. 333 when emotion rises but doesn't overwhelm you. And don't scroll, listen to this, because those numbers are stabilizers, not predictions. They are the universe saying, stay right here, don't rush, don't explain, don't shrink. And your heart needs this right now because your instinct might still be to soften the moment for someone else's comfort, and listen to this truth. Discomfort is often the doorway to awakening, and it's not your job to close that door for anyone. And don't scroll, listen to this, because the reason their shock feels loud energetically is because this connection carries soulmate or karmic weight, and those connections don't dissolve quietly when one person evolves. They react, they shake, they demand recalibration. And your heart needs this right now because reaction is not resolution, it's a necessary pause where truth catches up to reality. And listen closely, because in that pause, you may feel pulled to check on them energetically, to wonder what they're thinking, to sense waves of emotion that don't belong to you. And don't scroll, listen to this, because sensing does not mean engaging, awareness does not require action, and your heart needs this right now because you're learning how to hold awareness without losing yourself in it. And listen carefully, because the universe has been teaching you restraint. Not emotional shutdown, but sacred restraint, the kind that says, I can feel this without fixing it. And don't scroll, listen to this, because restraint is power when it's rooted in self-respect, and your heart needs this right now because you used to confuse power with intensity, and now you're learning that power is calm, steady, grounded, and unmistakable. And listen closely, because what they found out about you is not just that you've changed, it's that you've integrated. You're no longer fragmented between what you feel and how you act, between what you want and what you accept, and that integration makes you magnetic in a way that can't be controlled or predicted. And don't scroll, listen to this, because unpredictability here is not chaos, it's authenticity. And authenticity destabilizes dynamics built on assumptions, and your heart needs this right now because assumptions once kept you small. And listen to this truth, you don't owe consistency to a version of yourself that hurt you to maintain it. And don't scroll, listen to this, because the universe is not testing you to see if you'll go back, it's watching to see if you'll stay aligned when old patterns try to pull you in through guilt, nostalgia, or curiosity. And your heart needs this right now because staying aligned can feel lonely before it feels freeing. And listen closely, because loneliness is temporary when alignment is real. And the reason this moment feels suspended is because something is deciding itself without your interference. And don't scroll, listen to this, because destiny does its clearest work when you stop negotiating with fear. And your heart needs this right now because fear might whisper that you're losing something, but listen to this truth, you are outgrowing something, and growth always feels like loss to the parts of us that learned safety through familiarity. And don't scroll, listen to this, because the universe is asking you to trust the steadiness you feel now more than the intensity you felt before. And your heart needs this right now because steadiness is the foundation of what comes next. And listen closely, because what comes next does not require you to initiate, chase, or explain, it requires you to remain present, grounded, and honest with yourself. And don't scroll, listen to this, because honesty now means not minimizing your worth to make someone else feel secure. And your heart needs this right now because you've done that before and paid for it quietly. And listen carefully, because the shock they're experiencing is also an invitation, to them, not to you. To rise to the frequency you're now holding, and don't scroll, listen to this, because whether they accept that invitation is not your responsibility, and your heart needs this right now because responsibility has been heavy for you in relationships, and the universe is lightening that load intentionally, and listen closely, because part 2 is not about predicting their next move, it's about anchoring your position, reminding you that you are not in limbo, you are in alignment, and don't scroll. Listen to this, because alignment can feel quiet after chaos, and quiet can feel like nothing is happening when in fact everything is rearranging itself beneath the surface, and your heart needs this right now because patience is not passive, it's powerful, and listen carefully, because the universe is not asking you to wait, it's asking you to stand, to hold your ground energetically, emotionally, spiritually, and don't scroll. Listen to this, because standing your ground does not require confrontation, it requires presence, and your heart needs this right now because presence is what keeps you from slipping back into old roles, and listen closely, because the more you stay present, the clearer everything becomes, and clarity does not arrive as drama, it arrives as certainty, and don't scroll, listen to this, because certainty is settling into you right now, even if you can't name it yet. And your heart needs this right now because certainty doesn't shout, it hums, and listen to this final moment carefully, because part 2 closes not with an answer, but with a grounding truth. You did not cause their shock by leaving, you caused it by arriving fully as yourself, and what unfolds next will not require you to prove anything, because the universe has already done the revealing. And all that's being asked of you now is to stay exactly where you are, awake, steady, and unwilling to shrink back into a version of yourself you've already outgrown. Don't scroll, listen to this message is for you, and if you're still here after everything that's already unfolded, it's because your heart needs this right now at a deeper level than curiosity, because this is the moment where the universe stops explaining and starts revealing, and listen closely because what's happening now is subtle, intense, and irreversible, and the reason your person is still shaking is not because of what they just learned, but because of what they can no longer unsee. And don't scroll, listen to this, because once awareness clicks in a soul connection, there is no going back to ignorance. And your heart needs this right now because you may still be underestimating the impact of your presence, your absence, your growth, and listen carefully, because the truth that destabilized them is this. You are no longer emotionally available in the way you once were, not because you closed your heart, but because you opened it to yourself, and that shift is seismic in soulmate dynamics. And don't scroll, listen to this, because when someone realizes they no longer trigger the same reactions, the same explanations, the same emotional labor, it forces them to confront the reality that control has dissolved. And your heart needs this right now because control once disguised itself as connection, and listen to this truth, connection rooted in control cannot survive authenticity, and authenticity is what you're standing in now, even if you didn't announce it. And don't scroll, listen to this, because the universe revealed your transformation to them in a way they could not rationalize away, maybe through silence that spoke louder than words, maybe through your calm when they expected reaction, maybe through your absence when they assumed access, and your heart needs this right now because absence, when aligned, is not punishment, it's truth. And listen carefully, because what they are experiencing is not anger first, it's disbelief that you are no longer orbiting their expectations, disbelief that you didn't collapse, chase, or explain, disbelief that you chose yourself without needing their permission. And don't scroll, listen to this, Because disbelief is the ego's last defense before surrender, and your heart needs this right now because surrender is not something you can force in another person. It has to happen when truth becomes undeniable. And listen closely, because the universe has been supporting you through this energetic shift with signs meant to anchor you, not to provoke them. Angel numbers like 11. 11 appearing when you feel steady in yourself, confirming alignment. 222 showing up when you're tempted to second-guess your boundaries, reminding you that balance is sacred. And 444 appearing when you feel protected even in silence. And don't scroll, listen to this, because those numbers are reminders that you are not alone in holding this frequency. And your heart needs this right now because holding your ground can feel lonely before it feels powerful. And listen carefully, because the reason their shock feels chaotic is because your calm exposes the imbalance that once went unnoticed. And don't scroll, listen to this, because imbalance thrives on reaction, and reaction is what you no longer provide. And your heart needs this right now because you've mistaken reaction for passion in the past, and now you're learning that real passion doesn't destabilize your nervous system, it stabilizes it. And listen closely, because what they found out about you is not just that you've healed, it's that you no longer negotiate your worth, and that realization shakes anyone who benefited from you doubting yourself. And don't scroll, listen to this, because this isn't about blame, it's about clarity, and your heart needs this right now because clarity ends cycles quietly, without confrontation, without drama. And listen carefully, because the universe has been orchestrating this moment so that you don't regress under pressure. And pressure may come, not always externally, but internally, through nostalgia, guilt, or curiosity. And don't scroll, listen to this, because curiosity does not require action, and your heart needs this right now because action driven by curiosity often pulls you back into old dynamics. And listen closely, because the universe is asking you to observe, not intervene. To witness how truth rearranges itself without your involvement. And don't scroll, listen to this, because observation is power when you're no longer emotionally entangled. And your heart needs this right now because detachment does not mean indifference, it means discernment. And listen carefully, because discernment is what allows soulmate connections to either elevate or dissolve naturally, without force. And don't scroll, listen to this, because the reason this feels like a turning point is because it is, and turning points rarely announce themselves with clarity up front, they announce themselves through internal steadiness. And your heart needs this right now. Because steadiness used to feel unfamiliar, and now it's becoming your baseline. And listen closely, because the universe is watching how you respond to being seen without explanation, to being valued without effort, to being respected without demand. And don't scroll, listen to this, because those experiences are preparing you for the next level of connection, whether with this person or another aligned soul. And your heart needs this right now because you're not being punished for outgrowing someone, you're being positioned for reciprocity. And listen carefully, because reciprocity only exists where self-respect is non-negotiable. And don't scroll, listen to this, because self-respect is the frequency that destabilizes outdated dynamics. And your heart needs this right now because you've paid the cost of self-abandonment before, and you're no longer willing to pay it again. And listen closely, because the shock therein is also revealing something else. They are being forced to feel what you once felt: uncertainty, lack of control, emotional vulnerability. And don't scroll, listen to this, because empathy sometimes arrives through mirroring, not conversation. And your heart needs this right now because empathy does not require reconciliation to be real. And listen carefully, because the universe is not asking you to return to explain your growth speaks for itself, and don't scroll, listen to this, because explanations invite negotiation. And you are no longer negotiating alignment, and your heart needs this right now because alignment is not a discussion, it's a state of being, and listen closely, because the more you stay grounded, the more everything clarifies without your effort, and clarity is what dissolves illusion permanently. And don't scroll, listen to this, because illusion dissolving often looks like chaos to those who relied on it, and your heart needs this right now because chaos outside does not mean chaos within, and listen carefully, because your inner calm is the proof that you're on the right path, not their reaction. And don't scroll, listen to this, because the universe measures progress by how you feel in your body, not by how others respond, and your heart needs this right now because your body feels steadier than it used to, and that steadiness is sacred. And listen closely, because what unfolds next will not require you to move, chase, reach out, or correct anything. It will require you to remain present, to stay aligned, to trust that truth reorganizes itself without force. And don't scroll, listen to this, because trust is the final initiation in soulmate awakenings, and your heart needs this right now because trust replaces anxiety when growth is complete. And listen to this final moment carefully, because the shock they're experiencing is not your responsibility to resolve, it is their invitation to rise, and whether they accept it or not does not change your path. And don't scroll, listen to this, because your path is already unfolding, quietly, powerfully, and with precision, and what comes next will meet you without you having to abandon yourself again, because the universe does not elevate you just to test whether you'll shrink back, it elevates you so you can finally stay standing, fully, honestly, and without apology. Don't scroll, listen to this message is for you, and if you're still here, that's not accident or curiosity. Your heart needs this right now because this is the phase where the universe seals what has already shifted. And listen closely because what's happening now is quieter on the surface but louder underneath, like tectonic plates finally locking into a new position, and that's why everything feels suspended, charged, intentional. And listen to this, because the person connected to you isn't just reacting anymore, they're processing, and processing after shock is where truth either matures or collapses. And don't scroll, listen to this, because maturation feels slow and heavy to the ego, but liberating to the soul, and your heart needs this right now because you might be tempted to break the silence, to ease the tension, to offer reassurance, to make things normal again. And listen carefully, because normal was built on imbalance, and you are no longer available for that. And don't scroll, listen to this, because the universe has positioned you in stillness on purpose, not to test your patience, but to protect your alignment, and your heart needs this right now because protection doesn't always look like walls, sometimes it looks like restraint. And listen closely, because restraint is what keeps you from leaking energy back into a dynamic that no longer matches who you are. And don't scroll, listen to this, because the silence you're holding is not avoidance. It's sovereignty, and sovereignty is what shakes people who were used to emotional access without accountability, and your heart needs this right now because sovereignty once felt selfish to you, and now it feels necessary. And listen carefully, because the universe has been confirming this phase through signs that arrive like quiet nods instead of loud alarms, angel numbers showing up when you're calm, not when you're anxious. 11 appearing when you're grounded in yourself, signaling alignment in motion. 222 when you're tempted to doubt your boundary, reminding you balance is sacred. And 444 when you feel unexpectedly safe, signaling that you are protected even in the pause. And don't scroll, listen to this, because protection does not mean nothing will challenge you. It means nothing will pull you off your center unless you invite it, and your heart needs this right now because invitations often come disguised as nostalgia, curiosity, or the urge to check in and listen to this truth. Curiosity is not intuition, and don't scroll, listen to this, because intuition feels steady, not urgent, and your heart needs this right now because urgency used to drive your decisions, and now steadiness is taking the wheel. And listen closely, because the reason their reaction has moved from shock to silence is because they are confronting a mirror they didn't expect to see, the mirror of what happens when someone stops overgiving, stops explaining, stops performing emotional labor to keep the connection afloat. And don't scroll, listen to this, because mirrors don't argue, they reflect, and reflection can be deeply uncomfortable when it reveals what was taken for granted, and your heart needs this right now because you may feel waves of empathy for what they're going through. And listen carefully, empathy does not require self-sacrifice. And don't scroll, listen to this, because you can hold compassion without reopening access, and your heart needs this right now because compassion without boundaries is how you lost yourself before. And listen closely, because the universe is teaching you a new equation. Compassion plus boundaries equals peace, and peace is the currency of the next chapter. And don't scroll, listen to this, because this chapter is not about proving your worth or waiting to be chosen. It's about standing in your worth and letting choice reorganize itself around you. And your heart needs this right now because you've lived too long in reaction to others' decisions. And listen carefully, because what they are realizing now is not just that you changed, but that you changed without needing them to validate it, and that is destabilizing to any dynamic that relied on your responsiveness to feel powerful. And don't scroll, listen to this, because power built on access dissolves when access ends, and your heart needs this right now because you may still feel responsible for the emotional weather of the connection. And listen to this truth, responsibility is not destiny. And don't scroll, listen to this, because destiny does not ask you to manage another person's awakening, it asks you to honor your own. And your heart needs this right now because honoring your own awakening feels like standing alone for a moment. And listen closely, that moment is temporary, but necessary, because solitude clarifies alignment. And don't scroll, listen to this, because the universe is using this pause to recalibrate the energetic contract, either elevating it to reciprocity or allowing it to dissolve without force. And your heart needs this right now because force is not required when truth is present. And listen carefully, because the reason this feels like a cliffhanger is because outcomes are being decided without your interference, and that can feel uncomfortable when you're used to steering. And don't scroll, listen to this, because not steering is the assignment, and your heart needs this right now because surrender does not mean giving up. It means trusting the structure you're standing on. And listen closely, because the structure you're standing on is self-respect, discernment, and presence, and those are unshakable foundations. And don't scroll, listen to this, because the universe is also preparing you for something else quietly, the recognition that your energy is now attracting differently. People respond to you with more respect, more curiosity, more caution, because they feel your center. And your heart needs this right now because attraction that honors your center does not rush you. And listen carefully, because rushing would pull you back into old roles. And don't scroll, listen to this, because old roles no longer fit. And your heart needs this right now because you may feel moments of doubt creep in, wondering if you're being too firm, too distant, too different. And listen to this truth, different is the point, and don't scroll, listen to this, because sameness kept you stuck. And your heart needs this right now because evolution always feels isolating before it feels expansive, and listen closely, because what they are learning through this pause is whether they can meet you where you are without pulling you backward, and don't scroll, listen to this, because meeting you where you are requires accountability, self-awareness, and growth, and your heart needs this right now because you are no longer carrying those qualities for two people, and listen carefully, because the universe is not asking you to predict the outcome. It's asking you to remain embodied in the present, to notice how your body feels. Steadier, your breath deeper, your thoughts clearer, and don't scroll, listen to this, because embodiment is the clearest signal that you're aligned, and your heart needs this right now because alignment feels like relief, not excitement, and listen closely, because relief is what happens when you stop negotiating with fear, and don't scroll, listen to this, because fear might whisper that you're losing something, but listen to this truth. You are consolidating something. Your power, your clarity, your direction, and your heart needs this right now because consolidation precedes expansion, and listen carefully, because expansion will come in the form of clarity, either through elevation of the connection or through space opening for something more aligned, and don't scroll, listen to this, because either way, you win when you stay true to yourself. And your heart needs this right now because winning no longer means being chosen, it means choosing yourself consistently, and listen to this final moment carefully, because what unfolds next will not require you to reach back, explain again, or soften your boundaries, it will require you to stay exactly where you are, grounded, awake, and steady. And don't scroll, listen to this, because the universe did not bring you to this point to test your resolve, it brought you here to confirm it, and what comes next will meet you at your level, not ask you to step down, because you are no longer here to be shaken by someone else's realization, you are here to be supported by your own. Don't scroll, listen to this message is for you, and if you're still here, your heart needs this right now because this is the moment where the universe moves from reaction into reversal, where what once felt uncertain begins to reorganize itself around your steadiness, and listen closely because what's happening now is not loud, it's not dramatic on the surface, but it's profound underneath, like a deep current shifting direction without splashing, and that's why you may feel oddly calm while sensing intensity around you, and don't scroll, listen to this, because that contrast is intentional, and your heart needs this right now because you are no longer meant to mirror chaos, you are meant to anchor clarity, and listen carefully, because the person connected to you has moved past shock into reckoning, the phase where the mind tries to make sense of a reality it can no longer deny, and don't scroll, listen to this. Because reckoning feels uncomfortable when control has been lost, and your heart needs this right now because you used to feel responsible for smoothing discomfort, and now you're learning to let discomfort teach instead, and listen closely, because the universe has been guiding you to stop intervening energetically, to stop checking, guessing, or subtly adjusting your energy to accommodate someone else's process, and don't scroll. Listen to this. Because accommodation is what kept the old dynamic alive longer than it should have been, and your heart needs this right now because you're breaking a pattern that once felt like love, and listen to this truth, love that requires you to shrink is not love that can grow, and don't scroll, listen to this, because the realization they're having now is layered, they're recognizing not just that you changed, but that you changed without collapse, without bitterness, without needing to prove anything, and that realization forces comparison. Comparison between who they are and who they've allowed you to Become, and your heart needs this right now because comparison is uncomfortable when it reveals stagnation, and listen closely, because the universe does not shame anyone through awakening, it simply reveals, and revelation is what's happening now, and don't scroll, listen to this, because revelation doesn't ask for action immediately, it demands honesty first. And your heart needs this right now because honesty is what you gave yourself when you stopped abandoning your needs, and listen carefully, because you may feel moments where the urge to re-engage arises, not from desire, but from habit, and don't scroll, listen to this, because habit is not intuition, and your heart needs this right now because intuition feels calm, while habit feels restless, and listen closely, because the universe has been reinforcing this distinction through subtle signs, angel numbers appearing when you pause instead of react. 11. 11 when you feel centered, reminding you alignment is active. 222 when you question your boundary, reminding you balance is sacred, and 444 when you feel grounded even without answers, signaling protection in stillness, and don't scroll. Listen to this, because those signs are not instructions to move, they are confirmations to stay. And your heart needs this right now because staying used to feel like stagnation, and now it feels like strength, and listen carefully, because the reason there energy may feel heavier or more erratic now is because the dynamic no longer has your emotional regulation to stabilize it, and don't scroll, listen to this, because you used to regulate for 2, and your heart needs this right now because that role exhausted you quietly, and listen to this truth, exhaustion is often mistaken for devotion, and don't scroll, listen to this, because devotion that costs your peace is not sustainable, and your heart needs this right now because peace is no longer negotiable for you, and listen closely, because the universe is teaching you that not every feeling requires a response, not every realization requires reconciliation, and not every connection is meant to continue in the same form once growth occurs, and don't scroll, listen to this, because continuation does not always mean togetherness, it sometimes means completion. And your heart needs this right now because completion can feel like loss before it feels like relief, and listen carefully. Because the relief is already showing up in your body, in the way your breath deepens, your shoulders drop, your thoughts slow when you stop anticipating their next move, and don't scroll, listen to this, because your body is the most honest witness to alignment, and your heart needs this right now because your body remembers what safety feels like, even when your mind tries to overthink, and listen closely. Because what they are grappling with now is the absence of leverage that once came from your emotional availability, your explanations, your willingness to stay engaged even when it hurt, and don't scroll, listen to this, because leverage dissolves when self-respect becomes non-negotiable, and your heart needs this right now because non-negotiable boundaries are not punishments, they are statements of truth. And listen carefully, because the universe is not asking you to harden, it's asking you to stay soft with yourself, while remaining firm with what you accept, and don't scroll, listen to this, because softness without boundaries is vulnerability without safety, and boundaries without softness are walls, and your heart needs this right now because you're learning how to hold both, and listen closely. Because the next phase of this unfolding is not about whether they reach out, apologize, or attempt to reconnect, it's about whether you feel pulled or grounded when imagining that scenario, and don't scroll, listen to this, because your reaction to the idea tells you everything you need to know, and your heart needs this right now because discernment has replaced urgency, and listen carefully, because urgency used to drive your decisions, and now presence is doing the work, and don't scroll, listen to this, because presence is what keeps you from slipping back into roles you've already outgrown, and your heart needs this right now because outgrowing a role can feel like losing an identity. And listen to this truth, what you're losing is not yourself, it's the version of you that survived by shrinking. And don't scroll, listen to this, because survival mode is not meant to be permanent, and your heart needs this right now because you're transitioning into choice. And listen closely, because choice is what terrifies people who were comfortable when you didn't have it. And don't scroll, listen to this, because fear on their side does not mean danger on yours. And your heart needs this right now because you've mistaken others' fear for your responsibility before. And listen carefully, because the universe is clearing that pattern now. And don't scroll, listen to this, because what's unfolding is not meant to be managed by you, it's meant to be witnessed. And your heart needs this right now because witnessing without intervening is a new muscle for you. And listen closely, because every time you choose not to react, you strengthen it. And don't scroll, listen to this, because strength here does not look like dominance, it looks like calm. And your heart needs this right now because calm is the frequency that attracts what is aligned. And listen carefully, because alignment is not about outcomes, it's about congruence between what you feel, what you know, and what you choose. And don't scroll, listen to this, because congruence is what makes you magnetic without trying. And your heart needs this right now because trying is what drained you before. And listen closely, because the universe is positioning you for reciprocity, whether through this connection transforming or through space opening for something new. And don't scroll, listen to this, because reciprocity cannot enter where overgiving still exists. And your heart needs this right now because you've already released overgiving, even if you're still adjusting to what that feels like. And listen carefully, because the adjustment period is where doubt creeps in. And don't scroll, listen to this, because doubt does not mean you're wrong, it means you're unfamiliar with this level of self-trust. And your heart needs this right now because self-trust grows through consistency, not certainty. And listen closely, because consistency here means staying present, staying grounded, staying aligned, regardless of external movement. And don't scroll, listen to this, because external movement is coming, but it's not yours to initiate. And your heart needs this right now because waiting without anxiety is a skill you've earned. And listen carefully, because the universe is not asking you to wait, it's asking you to stand. And standing looks like honoring your boundaries even when curiosity knocks, honoring your calm even when intensity calls. And don't scroll, listen to this, because intensity that disrupts your peace is no longer love for you. And your heart needs this right now because peace has become your baseline. And listen to this final moment carefully, because what comes next will not shake you the way the past did, it will meet you at your level. And don't scroll, listen to this, because the universe does not elevate you just to see if you'll fall back, it elevates you so you can finally stay rooted, aware, and unmovable in who you are. And your heart needed this right now to remember that the power you're holding is not loud, not dramatic, but undeniable, and it is reshaping everything quietly, including how others see you, how they respond to you, and whether they can meet you where you now stand. And whatever unfolds from here, you will not lose yourself again, because you finally know where you are. Don't scroll, listen to this, this message is for you. And if you're here now, your heart needs this right now because the universe is moving into confirmation mode, not anticipation, not reaction, but confirmation. And listen closely because this phase is marked by divine numbers appearing with precision, not to excite you, but to anchor you. And if you've been seeing 111 repeatedly, understand this clearly. 111 is not about wishing anymore, it's about embodiment. It's the universe saying you are standing inside the alignment you once prayed for, and that realization alone is what sent shockwaves through the connection you're sensing. And don't scroll, listen to this, because when 111 appears now, it's confirming that your thoughts, energy, and actions are synchronized. And synchronicity destabilizes dynamics that relied on confusion, and your heart needs this right now because confusion once kept you reachable, explainable, manageable, and listen carefully, because 222 has also been showing up for you, not to tell you to wait, but to remind you that balance has been restored, balance between giving and receiving, between intuition and logic, between compassion and boundaries. And don't scroll, listen to this. Because 222 is the divine signal that you are no longer tipping yourself to keep someone else steady, and your heart needs this right now because you've lived too long as the stabilizer. And listen closely, because the universe is now stabilizing you, and when 333 appears, especially during emotional moments, it's not asking you to act, it's surrounding you with support. It's saying, you are not alone while you feel this. And don't scroll, listen to this, because 333 is the number of divine assistance, and assistance does not arrive when you interfere. It arrives when you allow, and your heart needs this right now because allowing still feels unfamiliar. And listen carefully, because 444 has been appearing when you feel unexpectedly calm, maybe even numb to drama that once pulled you in, and 444 is confirmation of protection, not protection from something bad, but protection of your alignment. And don't scroll, listen to this, because alignment is fragile when it's new, and the universe guards it fiercely. And your heart needs this right now because you are still adjusting to what it feels like to not be emotionally reactive. And listen closely, because 555 may have flashed briefly as well, signaling inevitable change, not chaotic change, but irreversible change. And don't scroll, listen to this, because 555 does not ask for permission. It announces that the old dynamic cannot be restored, even if someone tries, and your heart needs this right now because part of you still wonders if things could go back. And listen to this truth. Divine change does not reverse, it refines. And don't scroll, listen to this, because 666 may have shown up when doubt crept in, when your mind questioned whether you're being too firm, too distant, too different. And 666 is not a warning, it's a recalibration. It's the universe asking you to bring your thoughts back into alignment with your truth instead of fear. And your heart needs this right now because fear whispers loudest right before certainty settles. And listen carefully, because 777 is the number anchoring this phase, and 777 is divine confirmation sealed. It's the universe saying, this is not a test, this is alignment recognized. And don't scroll, listen to this, because 777 shows up when something is locked in, not pending, not undecided, locked. And your heart needs this right now because you've been waiting for a sign that you're not making a mistake by staying grounded. And listen to this truth, 777 is that sign. And don't scroll, listen to this, because 888 may have appeared when you thought about worth, reciprocity, or abundance, and 888 is the number of equal exchange. It's the universe correcting imbalance, saying, you will no longer give more than you receive to keep a connection alive. And your heart needs this right now because overgiving once felt like love. And listen closely, because 999 has likely shown up quietly, maybe once, maybe twice. And 999 is completion, not loss, completion of a cycle where you had to shrink to stay connected. And don't scroll, listen to this, because completion frees energy, it doesn't erase memory, and your heart needs this right now because you've confused endings with abandonment before, and listen carefully, because what's happening now is that these divine numbers are not just appearing externally, they are integrating internally. You're no longer scrambling when you see them, you're not searching for meaning, you feel the meaning, and don't scroll, listen to this, because feeling the meaning means the message has landed. And your heart needs this right now because landing feels like calm, not excitement, and calm can feel anticlimactic when you're used to emotional intensity, and listen closely, because intensity was never the proof of connection, alignment is, and alignment is quiet, steady, undeniable, and don't scroll, listen to this, because the reason the person connected to you is still unsettled is because your calm has removed their reference point, they no longer know how to reach you emotionally, predict you energetically, or influence you subconsciously, and your heart needs this right now because influence once masqueraded as closeness, and listen to this truth, closeness without respect is not intimacy, and don't scroll, listen to this, because the universe is teaching you to trust what feels peaceful over what feels urgent, and divine numbers appear now not to push you forward, but to keep you from stepping backward, and your heart needs this right now because stepping backward would require self-betrayal. And listen carefully, because self-betrayal is no longer available to you energetically, it feels wrong in your body, and don't scroll, listen to this, because your body is the final authority now, not nostalgia, not curiosity, not someone else's reaction, and your heart needs this right now because embodiment is the final stage of awakening, and listen closely, because embodiment means you don't just know your worth, you live from it, and that shift is what triggered everything, and don't scroll, listen to this, because the universe is not asking you to interpret the numbers anymore, it's asking you to respond by staying aligned, staying present, staying grounded, and your heart needs this right now because response is different than reaction, and listen carefully, because reaction is driven by fear, response is driven by truth, and don't scroll, listen to this, because truth feels calm even when it's firm, and your heart needs this right now because firmness used to scare you. And now it feels like home, and listen closely, because the next movements in this situation will not be chaotic, they will be clarifying, whether that clarity comes through elevation, honest communication, or space opening naturally, and don't scroll, listen to this, because whatever form it takes, it will meet you at your level, not pull you down to someone else's. And your heart needs this right now because the universe does not confirm alignment with divine numbers just to abandon you afterward, it confirms alignment because you are ready to hold it, and listen carefully, because holding alignment means trusting silence, trusting timing, trusting yourself, and don't scroll, listen to this, because trust is the final divine number, the one that doesn't appear on clocks or receipts, but in your nervous system, and your heart needs this right now because your nervous system finally feels safe, and listen to this final truth carefully, because part 6 is not about waiting for something to happen, it's about recognizing that something has already happened, you have crossed the threshold, and the universe is now responding to you differently because you are different, and don't scroll, listen to this, because nothing that is meant for you will require you to step out of alignment again, and your heart needed this right now to remember that divine confirmation doesn't rush, doesn't chase, doesn't beg, it settles, anchors, and stays, just like you are learning to do now.